My name is Lucinda, and what happened last month taught me that sometimes the most powerful response to family manipulation isn't anger. It's a perfectly executed legal transaction. You know that feeling, when your parents call you selfish for keeping something that's rightfully yours, when they demand you sacrifice everything for the golden child. The one who already has it all. That's what mine did. It all came down to a single text message from my father. Mark. It lit up my phone just before midnight. We've agreed. Stop being selfish. That's a free house. Either share it, or you're not my daughter anymore. Drop a comment, and let me know where you're listening from, and what time it is for you right now. I'd love to know who's part of our community. I stared at the glowing screen. The words, "You're not my daughter anymore," hanging in the silent room. 10 years ago. That would have shattered me. 5 years ago. I would have cried. I would have called, begged, and asked what I did wrong. But I'm 29, and as I looked at that ultimatum, I didn't feel sadness. I didn't feel anger. I felt quiet. It was the terrifying, cold quiet of a machine finally clicking into place. I didn't text back. I didn't throw my phone. I just set it down. I walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and watched the condensation trail down the side. They had finally said it. The one thing they always held over my head. They had finally put it in writing. Asterisk. You're not my daughter. Okay. I picked the phone back up. My thumb scrolled right past Dad Mark and Mom Judith. I went deep into my contacts. To a name they didn't even know I had. Veronica. Veronica is the CEO of the most successful historic preservation brokerage in Charleston. She's also the #1 rival to the company where my sister, Chloe, works. I pressed call. It was almost 1 a.m. But I knew she'd pick up. People like us, the ones who build things, we're always awake. She answered on the second ring. Lucinda. Her voice was crisp. No sleepiness. Veronica. I said. My own voice steady. Cold. It's Lucinda. I have a business proposition for you. Are you interested in a historic property? South of Broad. There was a pause. A smile I could hear. I'm always interested. I thought your aunt's house wasn't on the market. It is now. I said. I need to sell it immediately. And I need it to be absolutely confidential. Confidential. She repeated, tasting the word. I assume this isn't about the money. It's about the money, too, I said. But mostly, it's about the principle. I'll send the details. I'm ready to sell. Send them, she said, and hung up. That was it. The single most important transaction of my life. Set in motion by a single text message. To understand times why times I did it. You have to understand my sister, Chloe. In my family, there were 2 worlds. I was Lucinda, the risk analyst, the invisible one, the one who lived in spreadsheets, who found errors in code, who was practical, quiet, and boring. I was the reliable, beige wallpaper of their lives. Then, there was Chloe. Chloe is a real estate agent, and she's not just any agent. She's a star. She's sparkling. All teeth and blonde highlights and power lunches. She doesn't just sell houses. She sells a Times lifestyle asterisk. She sells Times herself asterisk. And my parents? Mark and Judith. They absolutely adored her for it. Chloe was the show. I was the spreadsheet. And the spreadsheet's only job was to make sure the show went on. The injustice didn't start with the house. The house was just the endgame. It was death by 1,000 cuts. A lifetime of being the dull one. I remember in my junior year of college, I found a specialized summer course on risk analytics. It was $400. I asked my father, Mark, if I could use it. He sighed, looking over his glasses, and said, Lucinda, things are tight. Your sister. Well, you know, we just don't have that kind of luxury right now. I ended up working double shifts, as a waitress to pay for it myself. 2 weeks later, my mother, Judith, posted a photo album on Facebook. The title was, Our Shining Star in Dubai Chloe. My sister was on an all-expenses-paid networking trip. She was 21, posing on a yacht. That trip cost them $5,000. I used to think they loved Chloe more. Now I understand. They didn't love Chloe. They loved the Times reflection of themselves, Times in Chloe. Chloe wasn't a daughter. She was an ego investment. She was shiny. She was loud. She made their success visible to the world. I, on the other hand, was just a cost. I learned to be quiet, to expect nothing, to just survive them. And in that silence, I had one ally. My Aunt Clara. My parents just saw a quiet girl, but Aunt Clara saw an analyst. I remember when I was 15. I was bored at her house and started reading her home insurance policy. I found 3 logical fallacies. 3 loopholes that would have cost her thousands if a flood hit. I brought it to her. Terrified I was being rude. She looked at the paper, then at me, and a huge smile spread across her face. She just laughed. She said, "My God, Lucinda, that's brilliant." She pulled me aside later and said, "Listen to me. Your sister Chloe. She sees the surface. She sees the paint. The shine. You see the structure. You see the bones. Don't ever let them convince you that your silence is weakness." That house, her house, wasn't just property. It was the only headquarters I ever had. The only place I was allowed to be myself. And then, last month, Aunt Clara passed away. I sat in the lawyer's office. Numb. He read the will. Everything. The furniture. The books. The stocks. And the house. The $1.2 million historic home on South of Broad. She left it all to me. I knew, even as the lawyer was speaking. This wasn't a gift. It was a war chest. And I knew, before I even left the office, that the war had just begun. The calls started before I even got to my car. My call with Veronica ended at 1:03 a.m. At 9:05 a.m., my mother, Judith, called. Her voice was sweet. Syrupy. The voice she always used when she wanted to pretend we were a normal, loving family. "Lucinda. Honey, how are you? We were all just talking about the house." I stayed silent. I've learned that in my family, silence is a weapon. They don't know how to fight. It's a big house for one person. "Isn't it?" She laughed. A high-pitched, nervous sound. "And Chloe?" "Well, she's working on the biggest deal of her career. A billionaire investor from New York. He loves that historic neighborhood. He wants a house exactly times like Clara's." I waited. The ask was coming. "So," she continued, "we thought the simplest thing would be for you to just sell it to Chloe's company. It's so much cleaner that way. They'll handle the paperwork. Chloe said they can offer you $600,000? Cash. $600,000. For a $1.2 million property. They weren't just asking me to share. They were asking me to take a $600,000 loss. Just so Chloe could get a promotion. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I just breathed. "Lucinda." My mother's voice lost its sweetness. It was replaced by the thin, sharp edge of impatience. "Don't do this. Don't be difficult. It's a free house. You're not being fair to your sister." "I'll have to think about it," I said, my voice flat. "Think about what?" She snapped. "There's nothing to think about. Your father and I agree. This is what's best for the family." "I have to go," I said, and hung up. I didn't have to wait long. An hour later, an email landed in my inbox. The subject line was urgent, Charleston property contract. It was from Chloe. From her Times official work, email, asterisk. It was the single stupidest, most arrogant mistake she could have made. The email didn't say, "Hi, Lucinda." It didn't say, "Hope you're doing okay." It said, "Lucinda. Attached is the standard offer. $600,000. I need you to sign it and send it back by 5 p.m. today. My client is on a deadline. And I am not times losing this promotion because you're having an emotional moment. This is my career. Be a team player for once. Chloe." She had attached a legal purchase agreement. She'd used her company's template to try and lowball her own sister. I saved a PDF of that email. Then I saved a backup. Then I forwarded it to a private, encrypted folder. As a risk analyst, I know the value of good documentation. The final blow came that evening. I saw a notification from my cousin. "Is everything okay?" She sent me a screenshot of my mother's Facebook page. My mother, Judith, had posted a blurry photo of her and Chloe. Arms linked. Smiling. The caption. It's heartbreaking when you raise 2 children. But only one of them remembers what family means. So blessed for my Chloe. Some people just let money make them cruel. The comments were already flooding in. You're a saint. Judith, I'm praying for you. Horrible, after all you've done for her. They weren't just trying to manipulate me. They were building a public case against me. They were painting me as the villain. They had no idea that I had already sold the house. And they had no idea who I'd sold it to. They thought they were in a family argument. I knew I was in a legal battle. And I knew I had already won. The next day, I wasn't in a cramped family meeting. I was on the 27th floor of the tallest building in Charleston. In a glass-walled conference room that overlooked the entire harbor. This was Veronica's world. The contrast was stark. There was no emotional screaming here. No, passive-aggressive Facebook posts. The air was still. The only sound was the quiet hiss of the air conditioning. The table wasn't cheap laminate. It was a single, massive piece of polished oak. Veronica walked in. Not with a realtor, but with her lawyer. She wore an impeccable navy blue suit. She didn't offer sympathy. She offered a handshake. Lucinda. She nodded. All business. Veronica. We sat. Her lawyer slid a stack of papers across the table. My team ran the numbers on the property. Veronica said, leaning forward. The $600,000 your sister offered. It's not just an insult. It's attempted theft. The land value alone is worth more than that. I nodded, saying nothing. It needs work. She continued. The foundation needs shoring up. The wiring is pre-war. But it's a gem. The preservation potential is immense. She named a number. I'm prepared to offer $1,300,000. $100,000. Times above. Times the $1.2 million appraisal. She wasn't trying to lowball me. She was establishing her power. She was showing me what times real times respect in business looked like. It wasn't about blood. It was about value. Are you sure? I asked. My voice steady. Veronica smiled. A small, sharp smile. I am always sure about my investments. Lucinda. The documents are all here. The sale is confidential. As you requested? The funds will be in your account within 24 hours. I picked up the pen. It was heavy. Cold metal. I looked at the signature line. Lucinda M. Price asterisk. I thought about my father's text. You're not my daughter. I thought about Chloe's email. Be a team player for once. The ink flowed onto the page. The sound of the pen scratching on the thick paper was the only sound in the room. It was the sound of a lock clicking shut. The sound of a chain breaking. It was the sound of my freedom. Her lawyer took the papers and began to stamp them. It was done. Veronica relaxed. Just slightly. She leaned back in her chair and studied me. You don't know why I really did this. Do you? I was confused. You said it was a good investment. It is, she said. But I have a dozen good investments on my desk. I didn't just buy a house. Lucinda. I was fulfilling a promise. I just stared at her. I knew your Aunt Clara. Veronica said, her voice softening for the first time. She was my mentor when I was just starting out. 20 years ago. Trying to break into this good old boys' club. Clara was the only one who took me seriously. She taught me how to read a contract, how to spot a lie, and how to value a building's bones. She paused, looking out the window at the city. Clara called me about 6 months ago. She knew she was sick. She knew she wasn't going to make it. My breath caught. Veronica continued. She said, Veronica, I'm about to leave my house to my niece. The smart one. Lucinda, she said. The moment I'm gone. My family. They're going to try and tear her to pieces. They're going to try to steal that house from her. They'll see it as scrap. Just like they see her. I felt the sting of tears. But I didn't move. Veronica looked me right in the eyes. Her last instruction to me was simple. She said, when that day comes, buy the house. I don't care what the price is. You buy it. Don't let Chloe get her hands on it. Don't let them win. It hit me like a ton of bricks. This wasn't a desperate sale. This wasn't me lashing out. This was the final move in a chess game my Aunt Clara had started. She hadn't just left me a house. She had left me a fortress. She had left me an escape plan. She knew exactly who I was. She knew exactly who they were. And she had made sure even from the grave. That I would be the one who walked away safe. This wasn't just revenge. It was justice. A justice that had been planned, calculated, and executed. Perfectly. The confrontation didn't happen in a sterile lawyer's office. It happened on the front porch of Aunt Clara's house. 3 days after I signed the papers. My phone, which I had kept on silent, exploded with notifications. My family was on the move. I knew they were coming. Veronica and I had planned on it. I was standing in the upstairs parlor, looking down through the antique, wavy glass of the window. It was a beautiful Charleston afternoon. I saw my father's car. A leased BMW he couldn't really afford. Pull up, aggressively, parking halfway on the curb. My mother, Judith. My father, Mark. And my sister, Chloe, all got out. They weren't alone. They had brought a man in a cheap, shiny suit, their own realtor. They were brimming with confidence. Arrogant. Like a pack of wolves that had finally cornered. Well, me? The scapegoat. Just ignore the peeling paint on the porch. I heard Chloe's sharp voice cut through the air. She was speaking to her realtor. Loud enough for the whole street to hear. The bones are good. We'll gut the interior. Flip it in 3 months. The profit margin will be insane. Once my sister finally time sees reason. My father pointed to the driveway, where a sleek, black Audi was parked Veronica's car. Who's that? He grumbled. Probably one of the neighbors. Chloe said, dismissively. This whole street is old money. They marched up the steps. My father didn't knock. He pounded on the heavy oak door. 3 times. Hard enough to rattle the frame. I didn't move from the window. I just watched. The door didn't open immediately. They waited. Their confidence turning into annoyance. My father raised his fist to pound on it again. But just as he did, the door swung open. It wasn't me. It was Veronica. She stood in the doorway. Perfectly silhouetted. She was wearing a cream-colored silk blouse and dark trousers. And she was holding a delicate porcelain teacup. She looked every inch the CEO. The absolute owner of the space. My family froze. Chloe's face went white. The blood drained from it so fast I thought she might faint. Her mouth opened and closed, making a little gasping sound. Veronica Chloe stammered. What? What are you doing here? This is my deal. This is my family's house. My mother, Judith, the aggressor, pushed past her. We're here to see the owner. Lucinda, she said, trying to stare Veronica down. Who are you? Veronica didn't flinch. She took a slow, deliberate sip of her tea. The clink of the cup on the saucer was the only sound. I'm afraid you're a few days too late. Veronica said, her voice smooth, cutting, and utterly calm. I'm the owner. The silence that followed was beautiful. It was a perfect, stunned, suffocating silence. My father, Mark, was the first to find his voice. What? That's impossible, he sputtered, his face already turning a splotchy red. You can't be. Lucinda doesn't have the right. We haven't agreed to the sale. She doesn't need your agreement. I stepped out from the parlor, walking down the grand staircase to stand just behind Veronica's shoulder. I have every right. Dad, I said. My voice was quiet, but it carried in the silence. It was my house, and I sold it 3 days ago. My mother's eyes shot to me. You times what, asterisk? I sold it, I repeated, letting them enjoy the words. For $1.3 million. I made sure to enunciate every syllable. Not 600,000. That's when Chloe finally understood. This wasn't just a lost sale. This was her career. Her billionaire client. Her reputation. Her face twisted from shock into a mask of pure, ugly rage. You, she screamed, pointing at me, her hand shaking. You vindictive little. You did this. You sold it to times her times. You sold it to my rival. She was completely unhinged. She had just admitted everything. Right on the front porch. Veronica didn't even look at me. She kept her eyes locked on Chloe. Her expression, now ice cold. Miss Chloe, Veronica said, her voice dropping into a professional, lethal tone. Attempting to defraud a family member to lowball a high-value property for your own company. That is a serious ethical violation. Massive times one. I think the state real estate board, not to mention your own company's board of directors, will be very interested to know about this. She held up her phone, which had been discreetly recording. Chloe stopped screaming. She just deflated. The color, the rage, the arrogance, all of it just vanished, leaving her looking small. Bal. And, for the first time in her life, like a complete and utter failure. My father was babbling about lawyers. My mother was muttering, "You can't do this. This is our family." I stepped forward, right next to Veronica. I looked at the three of them. These broken, grasping people who had tried to ruin me. "Have a good day," I said, and I closed the door. The aftermath was quiet, but it was swift. Chloe was fired within 24 hours. Her attempt to use company resources to defraud a family member, and then losing the target property to her CEO's biggest rival, wasn't just a failure. It was a scandal. The story of the billionaire client who never existed, and the inheritance she tried to steal for $600,000, became the quiet gossip of the entire Charleston real estate community. Her career wasn't just stalled, it was over. My parents, Mark and Judith. I couldn't handle the shame. Their star child had imploded. Their neighbors knew. Their friends knew. They listed their own house a month later and moved somewhere inland, where no one knew their names. I sat at my computer. I looked at my bank account. The wire transfer had cleared. $1,300,000. I opened my old spreadsheet. The one where I tracked every dollar I was owed. Every $400 course. Every $5,000 networking trip. The numbers stared back at me. But I didn't feel angry anymore. I opened a new spreadsheet instead. I created a new budget. I didn't just want to have the money. I wanted to use it. I wanted to build something. That's the real difference between me and them. They only knew how to take, how to consume, how to flip things for a quick profit. Aunt Clara had taught me how to build. I took a significant portion of that money and created the Clara Heritage Fund, a private trust dedicated to providing grants and scholarships for architecture students and historians, specifically for the preservation of historic Charleston buildings. The revenge wasn't in taking Chloe's career. The revenge was in proving that I was the only one who understood the value of the inheritance in the first place. I wasn't just protecting a house, I was continuing a legacy. Months later, I'm sitting on that same porch. Veronica, true to her word, owns the house. But she gave me lifetime visiting rights. It's a protected landmark now. I'm drinking tea from Aunt Clara's porcelain cup. Across the lawn, a young woman, the first recipient of the Clara Heritage Fund, is sketching the intricate ironwork of the staircase. The house is quiet, but it's not the silence of weakness anymore. It's the silence of strength. Thank you for listening. Family isn't always blood. It's the people who see your value. If you've ever had to cut off a toxic relationship to protect yourself, share your story down below. You are not alone. And remember, sometimes, the best revenge isn't loud. It's just meticulously planned.